Welcome back. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and Judge Juan Merchan working together to deprive former President Donald Trump of his constitutional and legal rights in his New York trial. All of this according to a new House Judiciary Committee report. The committee says that their findings should prompt the, quote, New York appellate courts to reverse the verdict. The 35 report outlines the committee's findings since it launched its probe into the case last March. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, meanwhile, is announcing plans to advance legislation to strip Trump of the immunity that he was granted under the recent Supreme Court ruling, protecting a president's official acts from criminal prosecution. Joining me now is former Acting U.S. Attorney General Matt Whitaker. AG, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. We've got lots to talk about here. First, let's take on the SCOTUS ruling. We know the Supreme Court ruled that President Trump does, in fact, have immunity for official acts in the White House, immunity from any prosecution. But Schumer wants to reverse that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you know, Chuck Schumer is obviously wrong on this. What the Supreme Court laid out in their immunity decision was what the law is, and not just what the law is as passed by Congress, but what the Constitution protects for presidents because of the separation of powers and its structure in Article 1 versus Article 2. So Chuck Schumer doesn't have any power to change the SCOTUS ruling because it's a constitutional opinion and not just on what the law is. So this is a classic Washington, D.C. trying to, kind of put their thumb on the scales, but this isn't going to work because it's, it's illegal what Chuck Schumer's trying to do.
So you think this is just politics, not going to go anywhere?
Oh, I mean, anytime Chuck Schumer's doing anything, it's just politics. But in this case, he doesn't have any ability to change the Constitution the hard way, which is going to the people and passing it, out of Congress by supermajorities. So I just don't think it's going to work.
What about this new report from Judiciary that the Manhattan DA was working with the judge, Juan Merchan, to deprive former President Trump of his constitutional and legal rights? I mean, you talk about the gag order, all of this attention on what took place in that courtroom. Look, the judiciary wants that verdict overturned. Will it work?
Yeah, I thought it was a really Maria, I thought it was a really good comprehensive summary of all of the things that were wrong, both legally and factually, with the case, and how in concert together the DA, Alvin Bragg, and his office, along with Matthew Coangelo, worked with Judge Merchan to allow evidence that should have never been admissible, that was either irrelevant or highly prejudicial, how the law was twisted, how the Constitution was violated in these charges where the jury did not have to be unanimous on the counts as to what they convicted Donald Trump of. And so I think this is the first time I've seen in such a succinct manner all of the legal and constitutional violations laid out and allowed to see the light of day. It was a very well done product.
Well, I mean, there's also evidence of meetings between some of these prosecutors that have been trying to take Trump down, them meeting with White House counsel back in November of last year. So, there's an argument to be made that this was all coordinated by his political opponent, Joe Biden.
Yeah, and I've seen my friend John Ratcliffe come on your show before and lay out that case very compelling manner.
That's right.
Not only did you have Matthew Coangelo, the number 3, move to Merchan's office to prosecute Donald Trump in this case, and before that, Letitia James's office to make sure the civil case was proceeding. But you also had these meetings with, Fulton County DA, with other folks to try to coordinate this. And remember, the call went out from Joe Biden where he said that he was going to hold Donald Trump accountable to the law. And all these folks picked this up, whether it's Merrick Garland, whether it's Fani Willis, or whether it's Alvin Bragg, in order to do election interference. And fortunately for the rule of law, the system has worked and pushed back against these novel legal theories, which they've been trying to get Donald Trump with during an election year.
Let me get your take on the work of the day, and that is Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna expected to force a vote as early as today on a resolution that would fine Attorney General Merrick Garland $10,000 a day for not complying with a congressional subpoena to hand over those audio tapes from Biden's interview with the special counsel, Robert Hur. House Speaker Mike Johnson said yesterday that if it's brought to the floor, he'll vote for it. But sources told me yesterday that Johnson has concerns about it and is actually trying to stop Luna. I spoke with one lawmaker who said Johnson's trying to stop Luna from introducing her inherent contempt resolution. He's been doing this for weeks, although even with that, there's no enforcement arm to this resolution, and it won't pass because Republicans won't solidly vote for it. She changed the language to fining Garland, but Congress really has no ability to enforce that either. What's your take on this proposal? Does this go nowhere as well?
Well, so originally this idea of inherent contempt, I think, is a pretty good idea. And I think it's one of the reasons that Congress has the power to bring witnesses and get information when they issue a subpoena. But at the same time, it's also the tool that is certainly, in case of emergency, break glass. And so the question is, do you want to use this tool right now in this circumstance? There's no doubt that Merrick Garland is ignoring and violating a subpoena. There's no doubt that Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon are in jail for contempt of Congress. And so Merrick Garland should be treated similarly. But you're right. I mean, there are some real untested challenges that Congress is going to have to jump through the hoops. And if for some reason they lose any of these arguments in court when the Department of Justice pushes back, as you would expect they would, then that could take an important threat off the table from the Department of from Congress.
Yeah. Todd.
In the end, Matt, do the American people hear the Hur tapes before November 5th?
You know, that's a great question. Obviously, we saw with our own eyes the current situation with Joe Biden at the debate. I think that took a little bit of the need for it. But at the same time, it's another piece of evidence, because right now the message is, oh, that he had a bad night and he's still in command of everything. And as long as you get him before 8 p.m. And so I think the tapes are important. I think Merrick Garland will probably give them to Congress the day after the election or in time that it won't help change the outcome of the election. But obviously, Joe Biden continues to take on water, and his mental faculties are certainly under question.
We just spoke with Congressman Ralph Norman, and he was quite concerned about people tied to ISIS coming into the country, terrorists potentially coming into the country. Now, the Department of Homeland Security announced yesterday that Yemeni nationals will be offered temporary protected status for another 18 months as Iran-backed Houthi rebels continue to destabilize that country. Some are calling the move a risk, as Yemen is considered a special interest alien country, meaning that Yemen poses a potential national security threat. And an illegal Colombian migrant, by the way, wanted for drug trafficking charges in Spain, has been arrested in Massachusetts, according to ICE. The migrant crossed the border illegally in Del Rio, Texas, back in July of 2022, and an immigration judge released him on an order of release on recognizance. A.G. Whitaker, what do you think about all of this?
Yeah. This is the most dangerous time since 9/11 for American national security. There's no doubt that our border situation, the 10 million or more people that have come into our country illegally, has destabilized and made us less safe. I worry every day about a terrorist incident or incidents, coordinated or not coordinated, on American soil. And this is this TPS for Yemeni migrants, illegal here in our country, I think is very dangerous to allow these folks from known terrorist countries to remain in our country.
Sure. I mean, it seems quite obvious, doesn't it? A.G., good to talk with you. Thanks very much. A.G. Whitaker joining us this morning.